Well, another incredible success for the Indian Space Research Organization, close on the heels of the Chandrayaan-3 mission to the moon, now our mission to the sun. It was a textbook launch at the Sriharikota as Salve C-57 put Aditya L1, India's first satellite, to study the sun into orbit.
A textbook launch as PSLV C-57 put Aditya L1, India's first satellite to study the sun, into orbit an hour after liftoff from Sriharikota.
1, 0.
The mission attempts to study the outer atmosphere of the sun from a vantage point, Lagrange 1, without any eclipse or obstruction in the line of sight.
The Aditya L1 spacecraft has been injected in an elliptical orbit of 235 by 19,500 kilometers, which is intended very precisely by the PSLV, very unique mission mode here, with the upper stage of the PSLV taking 2 burn sequence for injecting the primary satellite for the first time. So I want to congratulate PSLV for such a very different mission approach today to do this mission of Aditya L1 to put it in the right orbit.
And while the whole world watched this with bated breath, it is indeed a sunshine moment for India. Ladies and gentlemen, Indian scientists had been working, toiling day and night for years and years together, but now comes the moment of vindication, the moment of redeeming the pledge to the nation.
It's a 1.5 million kilometer long flight. The aim is to put the spacecraft in a halo orbit around the L1 point for a closer study of the sun. It will take 120 days and the project costs a whopping 400 crore rupees. Four of the 7 instruments or payloads on board will give crucial information on the sun, including solar flares or bursts of radiation, and study the upper atmospheric dynamics and heating, while the other 3 will study the particles and fields at the Lagrange 1 point. The gallery was filled to capacity with children even more enthusiastic after Chandrayaan's successful moon landing recently. This boy and his family had come from Varanasi to watch the liftoff from ground zero. You want to become a space scientist at some point in time?
I'll think about that later.
Right now, what's your dream?
To become an IAS officer, IAS. Maybe I think it can also help us building, better hospitals or school.
Better hospitals or schools?
Last mission was very successful, and see how India have created a historical event, right? And in the world we become a first to put our legs on the moon polar side, right? So this will be also one historical.
4.9 kilometers per second.
Recently, the successful Chandrayaan-3 mission from Sriharikota to the moon had catapulted India to an elite league of a few countries. Now the country hopes that the Sriharikota to the sun mission too will turn into a success. At Sriharikota with Suresh, Sam Daniel, NDTV.
All right, now the first big issue we're taking up tonight. The Law Ministry today notified the formation of the high-level committee to look at holding simultaneous elections in the country. That's a one nation, one election under the chairmanship of former President Ram Nath Kovind. Now, Union Home Minister Amit Shah, Congress Lok Sabha leader Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury, former Rajya Sabha leader Ghulam Nabi Azad, Harish, Salve are some of the names in that 8-member committee that has been announced today. The committee will examine and recommend specific amendments to the Constitution, the Representation of the People Act, and any other relevant rules. They will also check whether the amendments to the Constitution would need ratification by the states. So that's one interesting point that has been put in there. Also, the feasibility of holding not only Lok Sabha and Assembly elections simultaneously, but also elections to municipalities and panchayats. They are to give the report as soon as possible. That was also something mentioned today. And the Congress so far in its reaction has said that they will consult their allies in the India alliance before deciding whether order to participate in this panel that has been announced. Well, to talk more about this, we're now joined by Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, Geeta Luthra. And we're also joined by Ashwani Dubey, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court. Thank you so much both for joining us today. And Geeta Luthra, first to you, this important point that has been mentioned in the terms and reference of the panel, that it's going to assess if states need to ratify amendments to the Constitution, because till now we thought they did need to ratify at least 50% of the states. So how do you see this? What does this mean? And can they actually, look at all these aspects about whether states need to ratify the amendments?
So this is actually a very vexed question, in the sense that if it's really going to have the repercussions of a constitutional amendment, which will actually have the repercussions of the kind, then state ratification would be required. But the only thing which militates against is the fact that in the earlier parliaments, it was actually one nation, one vote, by when it was in 1952, and I believe
and 1967, it's after 1967 that it was no longer like that.
That's right. So the very fact that this has been a practice, now what has happened is sometimes parliament has been dissolved before its 5-year terms. Sometimes a state assembly gets dissolved, there's a vote of no confidence. What do you do in such circumstances? And if you are actually carrying the principle wider than what was the practice in 1952 or 57, then you are talking about, or 67 in fact for that matter, then you are taking it a notch higher than what was the legal issue. Then you will need ratification. But if you are just saying, all right, once you do it, and then everything falls into play. So the question that is being asked and which is being said, suppose Parliament has a 5-year term, suppose Parliament, for example, dissolves before the 5-year term, then do we do an election in case nobody else is able to form the government? Then would you do the election for the 2 years that are left, or would you have
and similarly for states, that's the point. That was the need for because Ashwani Dubey in 2018, the Law Commission also looked into all this issue, and in fact it gave various recommendations, but it did say that at least 50% of the states should ratify the constitutional amendments, because it will require some states to dissolve assemblies earlier or extend. So a lot of complications. But it's very interesting now that this panel that has been set up to look into this all these issues has also been given the task to see if it's necessary for states to ratify.
Yes, if this constitutional amendment has to be done, this is one. 50% states, the consent, they have to ratify, this is also required. The perfect draft is the Justice Jeevan Reddy's draft, which was given in 19, and what he suggested, Justice B.P. Jeevan Reddy, in his 170th report on reforms of electoral laws, he has said that some states elections, there has to be some adjustment in schedule of others. The possible constitutional amendment, no doubt, as rightly you said, that the constitutional amendment is required. Article 172, 183 has to be amended. There has to be political consensus. Article 85 of the Indian Constitution deals with the powers of the president to summon parliamentary sessions not exceeding a gap of more than 6 months. Article 356, then Article 352. There has to be amendments, and that is why the experts, constitutional experts and best person from the finance ministry, best person from the Niti Aayog, and also the constitutional expert, Mr. Subhash Kashyap, one of the topmost lawyer of this country, Mr. Harish Salve, and then the President of India, former President of India, His Excellency Ram Nath Kovind, and Ghulam Azad ji, who was heading the Rajya Sabha, Adhir Ranjan Chowdhury, But it is not only an issue of deliberation, one nation, one election. It's a need of the hour. Need of the hour. There are few.
No, but that's not what we're discussing here. Yes, of course, there are lots of arguments that are in favor of this, and as a country to have constant elections, it's so much expenditure. All those aspects are there. But what was interesting is the fact that this panel has been asked to look into whether states would need to ratify this. So they're actually going to consider how about going ahead without the state's ratification. So let's face it, we have seen some creativity, so to speak, looking at various aspects of the law in the past to do away with certain things, or even Article 370 in Kashmir. So that is something that has raised eyebrows, that because opposition till now is saying states need to ratify it, but now they're going to look at to whether we can do away with that. Also, another interesting aspect has been about holding not just state and the national elections, but also municipalities and panchayats. Geeta Luthra.
Yes, you're right. It's going to be a gargantuan task. According to me, you can't get around the fact that you need 50% of the states to ratify. See, It's not this one election, and then, if there is a by-election, then we have something in place. You are saying the by-election will be only for the limited term. Now, as my friend has said, Mr. Dubey, that there will be amendments to various articles, 83, 85, I think 172, 174, 356. So the fact is that I'm happy that I think they should have had more constitutional experts on the committee. I'm very happy. It's a very high-powered committee. But
but interesting, Geeta Luthra, you're saying you don't see how they can get away from this 50% of states having to ratify it. And, I have to wrap up soon. But one quick question to both of you. We do have that special session of the Parliament in September. Do you imagine we could get this together by then? Because that was what some of the opposition members were thinking, that is that why this special session has been called to pass this. So Geeta Luthra, do you think it can be ready by then?
I feel it's too big a task, but we also have people, we have a law commission report, we have people who may just rely on the law commission report and then have a conclusion. It seems that this special session, they want to make a move on this.
All right, Ashwini Dubey, just quick, one sentence reply on that. Ashwini Dubey.
Gargi, it is in this special session, in any case, it is not going to happen. Because you need one voter list for all elections. Then you see the Karnataka, Himachal Pradesh elections have just taken place. How will you justify that? Then you see the elections of other states, which Uttar Pradesh also, how will you justify it and dissolve that? It will take 3 to 4 years at least to have a comprehensive study and how to go with it. And
all right, so I'll just have to wrap it there. But very interesting, Ashwini Dubey, you feel it can't happen just yet, and Geeta Luthra feels you can't get around the states needing to ratify the constitutional changes. Thank you so much both, and I imagine we'll be discussing this a lot more in the days to come.